Only about 3.5% of the total R&D effort in the UK is accounted for by small, independent businesses. Given that lots of policy focuses on the role they can play, there's a real issue about the order of magnitude of the effect you can get simply by focusing on small firms. Innovation is the commercialization of new ideas. Well, if you think about our standard of living, it depends on how productive our resources are. So the more we can get in terms of output from our inputs, and innovation is a key part of that, then the better off we will be. In terms of our ability to compete internationally, the more sophisticated and adding value our products are, the better we will be able to compete internationally. So all of those things raise our standards of living and potentially our well-being more generally. Because if you think about what determines how productive our resources are, it depends on new scientific and technical knowledge, it depends on the skills of our labor force, it depends on the ability of our firms to access knowledge, combine it, employ people and invest in the new capital equipment and new ideas that are necessary for innovation. So it's an all-encompassing activity, and policy has to span a very wide range of fields. If you look at the proportion of a country's overall output, what's called its gross domestic product, or GDP, then you can say how much do we spend on R&D relative to the size of our economy? And the UK spends a relatively small amount. And that's true even if you adjust for all kinds of things that might mean the UK might spend less because it's got more services than manufacturing, say. Even if you control for that, we don't invest as much as we should. Because over the past 10 years, the public sector investment on higher education, on science-based investment has gone up. Big long-term commitment to doing that, but it needs matching investment from the private sector. Well, we took part in a joint project with the Council for Industry and Higher Education. Two very striking outcomes of looking at the R&D landscape in the UK is, first of all, how relatively unimportant small businesses are. Only about 3.5% of the total R&D effort in the UK is accounted for by small, independent businesses. Now, given that lots of policy focuses on the role they can play, there's a real issue about the order of magnitude of the effect you can get simply by focusing on small firms. The second and other really important finding was the UK has twice as much of its R&D funded from overseas as any other major economy. And secondly, of the total R&D that's carried out in the UK, around about half is carried out by the subsidiaries of overseas companies which operate in the UK. So from a policy point of view, this means we have to be extremely sensitive to those policies which affect the location of R&D funding and also which prove to be attractive to multinationals seeking to locate their R&D in the UK. And finally, we've got to make sure that we capture the value from the R&D that's carried out here. We don't wish to be the economy in which the research effort is carried out, but the exploitation takes place overseas. Even if we weren't in an era of austerity, there are always many calls on public sector support. So it's very important to act as strategically as you can to get the most of whatever public sector support is needed. And that does mean thinking very hard about the sectors you support and the technologies you support in terms of which you expect to offer the most gains in terms of enhancing our public welfare. There's no single golden key policy initiative that will affect all areas equally. So the most important message is think at a disaggregated level, think at the level of different sectors and technologies, and develop an approach which is tailored to those and will involve some strategic choices.